I woke up to the steady beeping of a heart monitor and the sharp smell of disinfectant filling the room. My head pounded as I opened my eyes, staring at the white ceiling above me. Sunlight pushed through the curtains, but I couldn't remember how I'd gotten there. The last thing I remembered was driving home through a heavy rainstorm outside Seattle, Washington. My car had hydroplaned for a split second, headlights flashed toward me, and then nothing. I reached for the call button beside my bed, hoping a nurse could explain what had happened. Instead, I noticed something strange. Every clock in the room had stopped at 4:07. The digital clock, the wall clock, even my wristwatch lying on the bedside table, all frozen at exactly the same time. A nurse entered with a warm smile and a clipboard tucked beneath her arm. She greeted me like she'd known me for years. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said. "How are you feeling today?" I frowned. "Today? I was in a car accident last night. How bad is it?" The smile on her face slowly disappeared. She looked down at her chart before meeting my eyes again. "Last night?" she repeated softly. Then she said the sentence that made every hair on my body stand up. "Mr. Carter, you've been in room 407 for 11 years." I laughed, convinced it was some kind of cruel joke. "That's impossible. I'm 29. She looked genuinely confused. "You're 40 now." I grabbed my phone from the bedside table, desperate to prove she was wrong. The screen lit up, but the date made my stomach drop. July 18th. 11 years later. My hands trembled as I opened my messages, hundreds of missed calls, thousands of unread emails. My bank account showed transactions I didn't recognize. There were photos of birthdays I couldn't remember, places I'd never visited, and people smiling beside me who felt like complete strangers. Then I opened the front camera. The face staring back wasn't the one I remembered. My hair was thinner. There were faint lines around my eyes. I looked older, exactly the way someone would look after 11 years. Before I could ask another question, the hospital room door slowly opened. A gray-haired doctor stepped inside, carrying a thick medical file. He placed it on the bed without saying a word. The first page showed my name, followed by a diagnosis I had never seen before. Persistent reality displacement syndrome. Beneath it, in bold red letters, were the words, "Patient repeatedly believes it is the day of the accident." I looked up, ready to demand an explanation. But the doctor was no longer looking at me. He was staring through the window behind my bed with a terrified expression. Without turning around, he whispered just loudly enough for me to hear, "He's back in the hallway." I slowly turned toward the hallway outside room 407. At first, I saw nothing except the dim, fluorescent lights stretching down the empty corridor. Then, a man stepped into view. He was wearing a hospital gown identical to mine, but his face was hidden beneath the shadow of the flickering lights. He wasn't walking. He was simply standing there, staring directly into my room. The doctor immediately pulled the blind shut over the door's narrow window and locked it with shaking hands. "Don't let him see you," he whispered. "If he knows you're awake, he'll come back." Before I could ask who the man was, the lights outside began flickering violently. Slow footsteps echoed through the hallway. 1, 2, 3, then silence. A few seconds later, someone knocked softly on the door. 3 slow knocks. The nurse's face turned pale. She backed away from the door without making a sound. Another 3 knocks followed, louder this time. Then a calm, male voice spoke from the other side. "Mr. Carter," it whispered, "it's time for your discharge." The doctor grabbed my arm before I could move. "Don't answer him," he said firmly. "There is no discharge today." Confused and frightened, I looked through the small glass window. Despite his warning, the hallway was empty again. No footsteps, no man, nothing. Then I noticed a wheelchair parked directly outside my room. Someone had placed a hospital file on its seat. Across the front, written in thick black marker, was my full name, followed by one chilling word: deceased. As soon as the doctor opened the file, every color drained from his face. The first page was my official death certificate. According to the document, I had died in the car accident 11 years ago. Cause of death, severe head trauma. Time of death, 4:07 a.m. My breathing became rapid. "That's impossible," I shouted. "I'm standing right here." The doctor looked at me with genuine sympathy before quietly saying, "That's exactly what you tell us every time you wake up." He flipped through the rest of the file. Inside were dozens of photographs taken over the past 11 years. Every single one showed me lying unconscious in room 407, connected to the same machines, wearing the same hospital gown. But in every photograph there was something else. Standing silently in the corner of the room was the same mysterious patient from the hallway. Before I could process what I was seeing, the heart monitor beside my bed suddenly emitted one long, continuous tone. Beep. Every monitor in the room went black at the exact same moment. The hospital lights shut off, plunging everything into darkness. Then the emergency backup lights flickered on, bathing the room in a deep red glow. My phone buzzed in my hand even though it had no signal. A new notification appeared on the screen from an unknown sender. It contained only one sentence: "He's finally found the real room 407. At that exact moment, the locked hospital door slowly began to open, by itself. The hospital door creaked open inch by inch until it stopped halfway. Beyond it, the hallway was empty, glowing beneath the dim red emergency lights. Every instinct told me to stay inside, but curiosity overpowered fear. I slowly stepped into the corridor while the doctor repeatedly shouted for me to come back. The moment my feet crossed the doorway, the heart monitor inside my room went silent. The hallway stretched much farther than it should have, lined with identical doors, each marked 407. I counted them once, twice. There were at least 20 rooms, all carrying the same number. My breathing became heavier as I realized the hallway wasn't part of any normal hospital. It was impossible. Then every door slowly clicked open at exactly the same time. Inside each room lay a patient connected to life support machines. As I walked closer, my blood ran cold. Every patient had my face. Some looked younger, others older. One had fresh bandages across his head. Another appeared decades older with gray hair and deep wrinkles. Every version of me was asleep except one. The patient in the last room slowly opened his eyes and looked directly at me. He smiled weakly and whispered, "You're awake again." Before I could respond, he raised a trembling finger and pointed toward the end of the hallway. Standing there beneath a flickering exit sign was the same mysterious man in the hospital gown. This time I could finally see his face, and it was mine. I stumbled backward in horror as the man slowly walked toward me. Unlike the others, his face was covered with deep scars, and his eyes were completely black. "Don't be afraid," he said calmly. "I'm what happens when you refuse to leave." He explained that every time I woke up believing the accident had happened yesterday, another version of me was created inside room 407. None of us could escape because none of us would accept the truth. The hospital wasn't treating patients. It was trapping unfinished lives. "You've been waking up here for 11 years, he whispered. "Every time you reject reality, the cycle begins again." Suddenly, all the versions of me sitting in the other rooms turned their heads at the exact same moment. Every one of them smiled. Before I could run, the hospital's loudspeaker crackled to life. "Attention staff," a calm female voice announced. "Patient Carter has left room 407. Begin reset procedure." Instantly, the hallway lights started shutting off one by one behind me. Darkness raced toward us faster than I could move. The scarred version of myself grabbed my arm with impossible strength and looked directly into my eyes. "When the lights reach us," he whispered, "only one of us gets to wake up." The final light above our heads flickered violently, then went out. Everything disappeared into complete darkness. When the darkness swallowed the hallway, I couldn't even see my own hands. The only sound was the steady beeping of a heart monitor somewhere far away. Then, one by one, the lights flickered back on. I was no longer standing in the endless corridor. I was back inside room 407. But something was terribly wrong. The hospital bed in front of me wasn't empty anymore. A man lay connected to life support machines, his face bruised from a terrible car accident. As I stepped closer, my heart nearly stopped. The patient lying in the bed was me. Tubes covered my face, machines breathed for me, and the monitor beside the bed displayed one chilling message instead of my heartbeat. Patient unconscious, day 4018. 11 years. I had never left this room. The doctor slowly walked into the room, but this time he looked much older than before. His eyes filled with sadness as he spoke. "Now you remember." He explained that my car accident had happened exactly 11 years earlier on a stormy highway outside Seattle. My body had survived, but my mind never woke up. Every day, my brain created another version of room 407, another hallway, another escape, because it refused to accept the truth. The mysterious patients weren't ghosts. They were every failed attempt my mind had made to wake itself. "Every time you believe the accident happened yesterday," he whispered, "the dream starts again." He gently handed me a newspaper. The headline read, "Local man remains in coma after highway crash. Family still hoping for a miracle." The publication date was 11 years old. Tears filled my eyes as I looked around the room. Family photographs covered the walls. My parents looked older. My younger sister now had children of her own. Fresh flowers sat beside the bed with cards dated only days earlier. They had never stopped visiting me. Suddenly, the heart monitor began beating faster. Nurses rushed into the room shouting excitedly. One of them stared at the monitor and yelled, "He's waking up." The doctor smiled for the first time. "This is your chance," he said quietly. "Accept the truth, or room 407 will keep you forever." I reached toward the unconscious version of myself lying in the bed. The moment our fingertips touched, every machine in the room screamed with alarms. A blinding white light filled my vision. I opened my eyes, gasping for air. Bright hospital lights shone overhead. My parents stood beside the bed, crying tears of joy. Nurses were calling doctors into the room while machines confirmed that I was finally awake. My muscles felt weak, and my voice barely worked, but I had escaped. 11 years had vanished in a single heartbeat. Doctors called it a miracle. News stations covered the story of the man who woke from a decade-long coma. Everyone celebrated, except me, because I remembered every hallway, every version of myself, and every terrifying night inside room 407. I knew those memories were real, somehow. 6 months later, I returned to the hospital to thank the staff who had cared for me all those years. Curiosity pulled me toward the 4th floor one last time. Room 407 had been permanently closed after renovations, and the hallway was completely empty. As I turned to leave, I heard 3 slow knocks coming from behind the sealed door. Knock. 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 I froze. A familiar voice whispered through the wall, calm and desperate. "Please, don't leave me here." It was my own voice. I looked through the tiny glass window in the door. Inside the room, connected to the machines exactly as I had once been, another version of me slowly opened his eyes, smiled, and whispered, "Welcome back."